Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Monday, it's a start of another week. I hope you're having a good one wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. As always, thank you very much for joining me. I really do appreciate it on what is a Monday morning, directly sort of over that awkward little hump that we get to in the international break, where we can start to focus now on the week that is to come, the weekend that is to come. And of course, it's a massive one for an Arsenal point of view, the North London derby. It is in sight now. We're over halfway there. First half of the international break always feels like it's dragging. We get to this point, you can start to look forward to that game. And what a game. What a game it is going to be. We're, of course, going to really sort of ramp up the coverage, build up to that match on this channel here, whether it be the usual shows, whether it be the Arsenal Press Pass show, which goes out to Inside Arsenal Patreon members. That'll be recorded later on in the week. We've got Inside Arsenal Extra Time with James Benge as well. Lots and lots of chat as we build up to that massive game at the Emirates on Sunday afternoon. Arsenal versus Tottenham. Plenty to talk about in today's show. We're going to talk about Gabriel. Of course, the fallout continues to that injury he suffered for Brazil on Saturday in their game at the Emirates. Brazil have now put out a statement on Gabriel's injury. That came out yesterday afternoon. If you haven't seen or heard that, we'll go over that. There's obviously, as I said, lots of fallout continuing from that. It's been just constant debate in terms of Arsenal fans. You know, why has this happened? Could we have done anything more to stop it? All that sort of stuff. Lots of questions coming in from you guys on all of my various channels, whether it be YouTube, Patreon, the Discord, WhatsApp. Loads of you getting in touch on that. So we're going to talk about it. Of course, we're going to talk about it. We've got other bits and pieces. Better news on Riccardo Calafiori. That's a positive in terms of his fitness and whether he's going to be involved. And I think that's going to be crucial, of course, if Gabriel does miss out, as expected, against Tottenham. If we can have Riccardo Calafiori fit for that game, that's going to make a big difference. We'll talk about that. Other bits and pieces to round up as well. But we'll start with Gabriel. As I said, the fallout continues from that injury he suffered on Saturday playing for Brazil at the Emirates. We'll start off just by going over the statement in case you haven't heard it or read it yet. This is what the Brazil national squad put out yesterday. So Arsenal player Gabriel was reevaluated this Sunday and underwent imaging tests that revealed a muscle injury in his right thigh. Therefore, the player will not travel for the match against Tunisia in Lille. No other player will be called up to replace him. So that was a statement that Brazil have put out again about Gabriel. No massive surprise there. I mean, you only have to look at the images, one of which is on the screen at the moment. If you're watching on YouTube or Patreon, you can see what I'm talking about, but you saw the images on the video, you know, when he went off on the game. It's obviously an injury to that sort of right upper thigh, groin, abductor area, whatever you want to call it. And Carlo Ancelotti said after the game in his press conference, it was an abductor injury. So we don't know the true extent of it. I've had questions already, you know, what's the deal about it? How long is he going to be out for? I don't even think Arsenal will know that definitively yet. As Brazil said, they did a scan with Brazil yesterday. He's now been released from the Brazil squad. He'll be going back to Arsenal. He'll be there today. I think Arsenal will probably, as is the way with these things, they'll let it recover for a couple of days and then they'll put him through another scan once it's settled down a little bit, once any of the swelling or bruising, whatever is, and then they'll give it another scan, and that's when they'll get a much clearer picture. So I don't even think they will know definitively if it's going to be good news or bad news yet. They'll have a fair idea, but they won't know definitively. I think they'll probably need another scan to do that. Look, I think it's very unlikely that we see him, certainly against Spurs, probably unlikely we see him at all in that crucial week that Arsenal have got coming up next week. That would be very much best case scenario if he's going to be involved in any of that. But as I said, there's been lots of sort of reaction to it, frustration, disappointment, sort of emotional responses from Arsenal fans, understandably, because we're going to be missing, in my view, probably up there, one of the most two important players to this team right now that you could really do with being fit, Gabriel and Martin Zubimendi. I just think those two are so crucial to this Arsenal team. Gabriel's so effective in both boxes, obviously such a leader, brilliant at the back, great going forward for such a threat from set pieces. Zubimendi so integral to how Arsenal play, and if he wasn't there, I think it'd be a real issue for Arsenal. So those are the two I think are the most important. So I can understand the emotional response that we're getting in terms of Gabriel and his injury. I've had lots of comments, as I've said, flooding in across my various channels. I'll go through a few of them now. We've got one from Daniel here who got in touch on the Patreon message board. Says disappointing on Gabby, obviously. However, injuries happen. We have fantastic defensive depth. He is going to be out for 5 to 6 weeks, in my opinion. Or I hope not, Daniel, but we'll wait and see on that. But you say you think we'll have enough to cover. Mosquera, Calafiori, Hincapié, all of those start for about 18 of the 20 Premier League teams. Yeah, of course. I mean, look, it is massive that we are in this position of strength that we are with the squad that we've built, that we do have these top quality options. I mean, all of those players that you've listed there. You know, Mosquera has been an absolute giant since he's arrived at Arsenal, barely put a foot wrong since arriving in the summer from Valencia. Calafiori's just started the season brilliantly well, and we've seen flashes of Nkapia, and that's it. But we know how good he can be. And on Calafiori, obviously, we've had better news on Calafiori, and the expectation is that he could well make it for Saturday's game. Yes, he's been released by Italy. Gattuso at the time when they released him said he probably could have played, but that wouldn't have been fair to Arsenal. We don't want to take any risks, which is a great thing from Italy and Gattuso to do. We're all very appreciative of that, of course. But the hope is he's come back to Arsenal, and the hope is that he is going to be fit. I saw Fabrizio Romano yesterday putting out a story or putting out a tweet saying that he'd heard he'll definitely be fit for this weekend, and he's fine. And there is definitely the expectation at Arsenal that he should be okay for this one. So that's really good news. And obviously that's going to be massively important if Gabriel doesn't make it. I mean, we talked about it briefly yesterday, and Daniel's saying here on the players who could potentially come in. You know, if Calafiori is fit, do you move Calafiori inside and then you play Hincapié and Miles Skelly at left back? Do you play Hincapié at centre back alongside Saliba and keep Calafiori at left back? There's lots of options. I mean, Mosquera and Saliba have played together already. Yes, they're both sort of predominantly right-sided players, but Mosquera has shown he can play on the left-hand side plenty of times before he came to Arsenal and since he's been at Arsenal as well. So Daniel is absolutely right. We have fantastic depth. It is not the end of the world. It's a blow, no doubt about it, but it is not the end of the world because of the options that we do have, despite him being so crucial to this Arsenal team. Sorry, says a long-time listener, first-time commenting. I'm wondering about the nature of players' contracts. Do agents add a clause regarding allowing players to play for their respective national teams if they're called up, or is it basically a right for the player to join the nations team with no veto power from the parent club that's paying their wages? If they simply have the right, I'm curious if clubs can add a clause granting them a final say to allow a player not to leave. No, I mean it's FIFA rules. It's written in. It's nothing to do with agents putting in clauses or anything like that. It's just the rules, unfortunately, that govern the game. That if players get called up for their national teams and the clubs have very, very little power or no power, basically. That's why even if they say, oh, they're injured, their countries have the power then say, okay, fine, but we're going to still bring him over and we're going to assess him at our national team. And it's happened with Arsenal before. I think, was it Gabriel Martinelli? One of the Brazilian boys recently, in the last couple of years, Arsenal said was injured, but they still flew him out. The country flew him out and did their own assessment from there. And then they agreed with Arsenal's assessment that he was injured. But even so, I think it was Martinelli had flown halfway around the world to have that assessment. You know, that's the power that the countries have once they call up these players. It's nothing to do with agents or clauses that get put into contracts with the clubs. It's just the rules, the way they set with FIFA and everyone, as frustrating as it is. So yeah, that's one there. Jay Bling says, hi, Charles. Is part of the problem with injuries on international duty the fact that Arteta doesn't rotate the squad enough himself? Gabriel, for instance, has played probably almost every minute for the squad. Then when he goes on international duty, expects a manager to rest him, which we all know won't happen. I don't agree with international managers playing a play in a meaningless friendly, but I believe Arteta's rotation also causes a problem. He shows no trust in other players and plays the starters into the ground. I believe that will do us in if he does rotate more. I mean, I get this argument and I see it all the time. Obviously, I do think Arteta has shown this season that he's getting better of it. I think that the second half against Sunderland with the lack of subs he made was a little bit sort of going back towards the old Arteta. But I think the signs we'd seen before that this season have been much, much better. He has been willing to rest certain players. I mean, look, Gabriel has started every game in the Premier League and the Champions League so far this season for Arsenal. But that doesn't overly surprise me. He didn't start the 2 Carabao Cup games. I looked at it just briefly. I was interested to see what Liverpool have done with Van Dijk, and he's done exactly the same as Gabriel. And, you know, he's a lot older than Gabriel, and he's also playing his games for the national team as well. So I don't think this is just an Arsenal thing. There is key players in every squad who will play pretty much every game, will start every game because they're the most important players in the team. Gabriel is one of those. And so I'm not. It's an easy thing to say after the fact, isn't it? That it's because Arteta hasn't rotated him more. But I just think with Gabriel, especially, he's just so important. There are some players who are just going to start every game. It's been that way of the world forever, and I think it will continue to be. I do think we've seen better signs from Arteta at times when it's rotating players this season. We've seen Declan Rice not start games. We've seen Saliba not start games and not rushed into games if he's nursing and not. We've seen players coming off. He's been doing it better. I do get that Gabriel is one player who hasn't, though, but I still think, you compare with Van Dijk, it's exactly the same sort of situation. It will be interesting when Hincapié is back fit as well, and the fact that we've not had Hincapié really for the whole season, whether that will allow Arteta to maybe rotate the centre-backs a little bit more than he has done in the past. But it's just every single point is so important. Every single point is so important. And as I said, I just think two of the most important players in the team, Zubimendi and Gabriel, you just want them playing all the time because it's so crucial to how Arsenal play. But I get your point, absolutely get your point. And you're certainly not the only person. I know Mark, my mate, messaged me on WhatsApp last night talking about it and saying about the sort of medical team. And I've seen you ranting on social media as well and getting into it with a few people on it, Mark. That, how do we even need to sort of hire a scout at the moment? Why do we put more money into the medical team and revamping it and sort of putting more money into injury prevention because it seems to happen to us more than anyone else? And again, I get it. It's an easy thing to sort of say and to that emotional response to a really, really key injury. But I just know, and I can only keep saying, I know Arsenal put everything they possibly can into injury prevention and the data and the science and everything like that. And they work on it so hard during the week and they analyze absolutely everything. But I just think for this instance, for Gabriel, they were in a, they couldn't do anything about it. They can't say he wasn't injured before he went away. I don't know. I mean, none of us know if there was any sort of injury. I know there's been sort of whispers of flags that he was asked that he trained alone with Brazil on Friday night, the day before the game. I don't know if that's true or not. I know some of the Brazilian reporters have reported that. But we don't know if Arsenal knew about that beforehand. We don't know if there was any sort of issues before they released him for the squad. So it's very, very hard. Once you get the squad calling and saying, we want your player, you just don't have, you can't do anything about it. It's a tough situation to be in. But anyway, let's sort of just quickly round up yesterday's international action. Obviously, Declan Rice was in action. Bukayo Saka was in action. Rice started for England in a 2-0 win against Albania. Eberechi Eze started in that game as well. Bukayo Saka came on in the second half, immediately made an impact. Bukayo Saka put it in the corner that Harry Kane scored the opening goal from. William Saliba in really good news, really good news, especially given what's going on with Gabriel at the moment. He didn't feature for France in their game at Azerbaijan. They won 3-1, I think, came from behind to win that game. But yeah, Saliba didn't feature at all, which is really, really positive from an Arsenal point of view. So he got a little bit of a rest for the second game. Jurien Timber should be in action later on today. That's the only Arsenal involvement, I think, in tonight's games for the Netherlands. And we've got Spain playing tomorrow, I believe. We've got Hincapié. He's got a late one in Hincapié. I don't think he plays till Wednesday, sort of overnight UK time on Wednesday. And it's I can't remember who it is that Ecuador are playing. I think they're in the USA. And they've got to travel back. So that's a late one for him. But we are coming towards the end of the international break now. And that's going to be a relief, I think, to everyone because it's been a tough one for all of us. Okay, on Cristhian Mosquera, as usual, when Spain have been away during the international break, Sid Lowe's done a really good interview with one of the players. He did it with Zubimendi recently while he was away, which was fantastic. He's done one with Cristhian Mosquera now, who has been away with Spain under 21s. Didn't play, actually. Didn't play in their first game, Mosquera. And he's done a really good interview with Mosquera. I retweeted it yesterday, this morning, sorry. So it's on my timeline if you want to go and have a read of it. It is very, very good interview, and there's some interesting stuff from him on Arsenal and defending. I really like these quotes. He was asked about Arsenal's defence and why it's so good. Why does he think it's so good? And he said, we're very, very aware of what we have to do. The goal is our house and no one is allowed in. No one is allowed near our area. Then be dangerous in attack. There's a tactical element, of course, the movements, but I think a lot of it is a mental thing. It's about attitude. Our house, do not enter. Inside the dressing room, we believe in ourselves. We know what we're capable of. We know where we can go. I thought those are some really, really good comments there. Again, that's sort of our house. It's not the first time we've heard that. We heard it with Mikel Arteta talking about the Emirates and the atmosphere. Now we heard Mosquera talking about the penalty area. The goal is our house and no one is allowed in. That mental thing he talks about there, the attitude, is so crucial. And you can see it in Arsenal in the way that they do defend. He was then asked about the joy of defending and keeping clean sheets and blocking goals out, all that sort of stuff. He says it gives you a surge of self-esteem. And that's something the manager and the staff tell us to enjoy. They want us to enjoy defending those typical actions where you make a tackle or block, celebrate them. That gives life to the team. It brings energy. That's important, and this group has it. Look at those moments when the entire team is running back. It's a fundamental part of the season. Some really good stuff there, I thought, from Mosquera. Interesting there, saying that, Arteta and the coaching staff are telling them to celebrate those blocks because it brings life and energy to the teams. As we see it, we love it as fans, doesn't it? It gets the fans going when you see Gabriel going mad after a block, or Saliba or Mosquera or anyone high-fiving after a tackle, after a block. It's interesting there that that brings joy to the team. It's clearly a real message from the coaching staff to, you do something good, you celebrate it like you do at the other end. If you score a goal, celebrate a block, celebrate a clearance, because it's an important part of the match, first of all, but it also brings energy to the team. Some really good stuff from Mosquera. Who knows, we could well be seeing him start at the weekend in the absence of Gabriel as well. And I would have no issue with that. If that is the choice, if that is the path that Mikel Arteta goes down, I'd have absolutely no issue with it, because he settled in so well, such a dominant player. Obviously, it'd be easier if it was Saliba, if he could just slot in on that side rather than Gabriel. He probably feels like the least likely option, just because we know how much Mikel favours having a left-sided and a right-sided centre-back. But if it is him, then I'd have no issue with it either, because he's done so well in his start to life at Arsenal. Right, on to the quick one on the women's team. Like I say, another disappointing result for Arsenal women yesterday. 0-0 held against Spurs at Brisbane Road. A opportunity for them, maybe not to close the gap on Man City, because Man City beat Man United, but Man U did drop points with that defeat at Manchester City. Chelsea were held to a draw, I think it was against Liverpool. And it was an opportunity for Arsenal, to close the gap, go above Man United, close the gap on Chelsea in second. They just couldn't take it. Couldn't find a way through. Not the most, I didn't watch the whole game, not the most entertaining of games, though. Had a couple of good moments in the second half, couple of decent moves. Stina missed one chance after a decent Arsenal move where they worked it from right to left, got into the area. Olivia Smith as well, that was a nice move just after, and she had a shot that was saved. But on the whole, it was just pretty toothless stuff from Arsenal. More pressure on Renée Slegers. It's not been a good start to the season from Arsenal in Champions League and in the WSL as well, already massively playing catch up, 8 points behind City at this early stage of the season. That's a big ask for anyone. In Chelsea, even with Chelsea struggling a little bit in terms of what their usual standards are, Arsenal not able to take advantage of that. And you can sense the frustration amongst the fan base in terms of how Arsenal are performing this season, the struggles they've got, especially in front of goal and scoring goals. It was pretty toothless stuff. They were a better team. They shaded it, but it was, did they do enough to win that game? Probably not. It has to be said. So another disappointing performance for the women and result. Okay, we've got a question here from Love Henry. Says, thanks, Charles. Great work as always. Question, do you think how our players are playing tactically in the national team, specifically Saliba at left centre-back and Timber as a right centre-back, is something we can leverage if Gabriel and Calafiori are not available, at least for the North London derby? Mosquera seems to be the easiest plug-and-play solution at right centre-back, so I'm assuming Saliba will move to left centre-back, then either Milesy and Capé will come in at left-back. These number of injuries, I doubt we can name a bench without an under-21 player for Spurs, assuming Kepa is still not fit. Company Gunners praying for the health of our players. Well, Kepa is fit. He was on the bench against Sunderland, so that'll be fine when it comes to Kepa, as long as nothing's happened. I don't see a way that Saliba's moved to left centre-back against Spurs. I just don't see it. You're shifting around your entire defence if you're moving Saliba to left centre-back to cover Gabriel. He'll stay where he is. I'm absolutely sure of it, and it will be, like I said, it could be Mosquera. He's played there. I think it'd be much more likely if you're going to move a right-sided centre-back to play left centre-back against Spurs, it'll be Mosquera rather than Saliba. But I think he'll go with, as I said, I think Calafiori is going to be fit. The expectation is that he's going to be fit for this game. So it could well be him playing there. We've seen that in pre-season, him playing at left centre-back. I think given how well he's played at left-back, though, and this is something we'll discuss, certainly with James Benjen inside Arsenal Extra Time, I think the way he's played at left-back and how good he's been there, if he's fit, then I think he probably keeps that position. It probably might well be more likely that Hincapié comes in and plays in that centre-back role alongside Saliba. But we shall see. That, as we said at the start of this show, there are plenty of options available to Arsenal, Mikel Arteta, and that's a good place to be, even if there is that big disappointment of missing out on Gabriel. And look, that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sending in your comments and opinions. As always, really do appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. And again, please do get down into the comments. Give me your questions you want answering. Give me your comments, your opinions. I'll pull some of them together as always and get them included in the show. Take it easy, everyone. Have a great start to the week. Bye-bye.